A very good evening. It's Zimbabwe. This is Studio 7 Live Talk, coming to you live from the Voice of America in Washington this Thursday, June the 11th, 2015. Welcome to Live Talk's Women's Roundtable, where we speak about issues affecting women. I'm Marvelous Mhlanga Nyahuye.
And I'm Praxedis Jeremiah.
And today on the Women's Roundtable, we are taking a look at the Africa Union Summit, the 25th summit currently underway in South Africa, whose theme is Year of Women Empowerment and Development Towards Africa's Agenda 2063. What are your views on the issue?
To join our discussion, you can call us on 001 202 619 2077. The number again, 001 202 619 2077, and we'll call you back.
And Live Talk goes out to Zimbabwe on the 909 medium wave frequency and on the 4930, 5940 and 15455 kilohertz shortwave Monday through Friday at 8:30 p.m. But for you ladies out there, Thursday is your day. Chinache Madzimai.
We are also on the web. You can find us on www.voazimbabwe.com, lobanjalo ku www.voaindebele.com, lobanjalo ku www.voashona.com.
My name is Nyarazai Gumbondrandha, General Secretary, Worldwide WCA, and African Union Goodwill Ambassador for the campaign to end child marriage. I'm here at the African Union Summit with girls from the continent, and they would like to give their shout out to the world as the daughters of the continent.
Girls empowered.
Takatarisa Varanasi kwanga kune kuvhurwa kwema-ministers e-foreign affairs asangana vari pamwe chete inonzi executive council ye-African Union. Tazopindawo musangano uyu pamwe chete navasikana vechidiki vatakauya navo kusummit. Tinoona pane zviri kukurukurwa zvizhinji zvakanyanya kusimba panyaya yekuti tingawana sei kuzvimiririra kunyanya upfumi hwemunhukadzi kuti akwanise kunge achiriritira mhuri yake akazvimiririra, uyewo iye pachezvake munhukadzi kunyanya vanasikana vakwanise kuenda kuchikoro vagokwanisawo kuwana mabasa kana kuwana mabasa ekuzvishandira nemaoko avo kuti ramangwana ravo ringe rakamira zvakanaka. Ndo zvimwe zvanga zvichikurukurwa, asiwo vana vatinavo, vasikana vatinavo vanosvika 30 vakabva kunyika dzakasiyana siyana zvichisanganisira nevakabva kuZimbabwe vari kuti honguka, zvese zviri kutaurwa pano tiri kuzvinzwa, asi anenge achingova mashoko kunze kwekunge upenyu hwedu hwave pari nani mumisha matinorarama. Saka vana vari kutarisira nemadzimai vari kutarisira kuti hurukuro idzi hadzizongoperi dziri hurukuro, asi kuti zvinova nekuti pave nemabasa achaitwa nehurumende dzedu nevamwe vese vembatanidzwa weAfrica kuitira kuti vana vawane dzidzo muzvikoro, vana vawane utano, madzimai ararame musina bongozozo, uye nyika yedu yeAfrica inge isina hondo dzatinosangana nadzo mazuva ano.
My name is Sipo Moyo. I'm the Executive Director for the One Campaign in Africa, and we're focusing right now on the Year of Women's Empowerment. The African Union declared 2015 as the Year of Women's Empowerment. And so our campaign, the campaign that tries to bring the attention of the world leaders, particularly the African leaders, on the challenges that are facing women and girls in Africa. It's the outcomes of the conference that impact them. And in this particular case, it's a strong declaration which we are asking for from the African leaders. That's what will impact a woman in rural Zimbabwe, because it translates into policy. When you have a Pan-African declaration, the next step is that the organizations at the national level begin to look at how to domesticate the content of that declaration into national level policies or national level legislation. The point really of this campaign is that it's all about economic transformation and ending extreme poverty in our time, and you're just not going to do that by leaving women and girls behind. You cannot change or develop by leaving half of the population behind. This is the African Union's Year of Women's Empowerment, but that does always necessarily translate into a strong declaration. And what we're trying to make sure is that the rhetoric matches the action.
Disithi thina as i-civic society sifuna ama-leaders ethu asithathe serious and njalo bahlonipha abantu and bakhe isizwe not kuphela at the AU level but beqalisele emazweni abo lapha bavela khona. Asithi thina umongameli wethu kumele angabi umuntu okhulumayo kuphela emazweni kodwa ngekhaya kungabi lezinto eziphumelelayo.
Today on the Women's Roundtable, we are discussing the 25th AU Summit currently underway in South Africa, which is running under the theme Year of Women Empowerment and Development towards Africa's Agenda 2063. What are your views on the issue?
What exactly is Africa Agenda 2063 is both a vision and an action plan amongst any other calls. It is a call for action to all segments of African society to work together to build a prosperous and a united Africa based on shared values and a common destiny. It's also a global strategy to optimize use of Africa's resources for the benefits of all Africans.
And PJ, a survey carried out by Zimstats last year revealed that 31% of Zimbabwean women are involved in early child marriages or unions before reaching the age of 18. On the other hand, UNICEF says at least 25,000 girls were involved in early marriages or unions globally per day. A situation most rights activists who are actually at the summit say they hope will be addressed during the summit.
We hear from...
yes, we hear from Mai Gumbonjanda.
On some of her expectations from the heads of states when they meet this weekend.
Yes, PJ. We may be having a technical glitch, but I'm sure we'll catch up with Ms. Gumbonjanda's, expectations during this summit.
Othi ke ngithi fahla ngamancane uhlelo lethu lamhlanje luhlelo lapho esikhangela khona ukuthi inhlanganiso ezinjenge African Union o SADC lezinye ezinjalo ziphathisa njani ekuhlomiseni abesifazana ukubana bathuthuke labo empilweni zabo. Khathesi sikhangela ikakhulu kulomhlangano lo omkhulu we-African Union owenzelwa eJohannesburg kwele South Africa lapho inkokeli zamazwe womhlaba ezibuthene khona ukuthi zihlaziye ukuthi zithuthukise njani abesifazane laba emazweni abo njalo lokuthi kukhangela ukuthi zona inkokeli ziyakulandela na izimiso leziqondiso konke okumele kulandelwe phansi kwenkuthazo yonale yokuhlomisa lokuthuthukisa abesifazane. Uthi sibuyeleke kunkosikazi Nyaradzayi Gumbonjanda usekhona khathesi.
Yes, we are going to hear now from Amai Gumbonjanda on some of her expectations. Tisataenda mururimi rwa Amai.
A real commitment to the future of Africa being an investment in girls. That our girls must have education, they must be healthy, and they must have decent employment or economic opportunities so that they do not have to be married as an opt-out of poverty. So that for me is the first big ask that I have to the heads of state, and I'm very excited that the heads of states would be adopting the Africa Common Position on ending child marriage.
Aiwa tiri kunzwa mazwi anonakidza chaizvo PJ kubva kuna Amai Gumbonjanda avo varivo kuAfrica Union Summit yechi 25 iriyo kuSouth Africa pari zvino vari kutaura ivo kuti vari kuda kuti vaone vatungamiri venyika dzemuAfrica vachishora ivo kurodzwa kwevana vachiri vadiki. Saka aiwa ndo zvatiri kuzeya nhasi tiri kutarisa kuti musangano uyu uchange uchibate chii panyaya dzemadzimai nevanasikana vechidiki. Musangano uyu uri pasi pedingindira rekuti Year of Women's Empowerment and Development towards Africa's Agenda 2063 ndo zvatichange tichizeya nezvazvo kuti tinzwe kubva kune vanyarikani vedu. Ndiri kunzwa pari zvino PJ tichiri kuedza kuti tibatezve Amai Gumbonjanda vari ikoko kumusangano kuSouth Africa nevamwewo vanyarikani kuti tinyatsonzwa kuti zvii zviri kuitika ikoko.
Indingimba kumbe yomhlangano okhona lonyaka ithi yona Year of Women Empowerment and Development towards Africa's Agenda to 2063. yikho ke lapho sizahlaziya lapho ke sizwe unkosikazi Nyaradzai Gumbonjanda okhona ngale la emhlanganweni lokhe amantombazana ethu lokhe bezama ukuthi bamthole ecingweni ube sibe laye kuhlelo yena ke unkosikazi Gumbonjanda ukhangele kakhulu ngodaba udidekile kakhulu ngodaba lokulotsholiswa kwabantwana kwamantombazana besesebancane andutshilo njalo ekukhulumeni kwakho lo Marvelous ukuthi ulawo amantombazana abuye lawo angamashumi amathathu abuye labo eSouth Africa ukuba bazokhankasela izimiso zokuthi bavikelwe kanye lokuthi kulondolozwe amalungelo abo ukuze bangalotsholiswa bengabantwana abancane kusephula ilungelo lawo.
Aiwa, tanyatsonzwisisapo PJ tinenge tine munyarikani wedu wekutanga Amai Gumbonjanda vari kuSouth Africa makadi yenyu Amai Gumbonjanda. Aiwa PJ nhare dzedu dzinenge dzisiri kuita zvakanaka asi ticharamba tichiedza. Amai Gumbonjanda makadi yenyu tinokuchingamidzai pachirongwa.
Ndichitenda nekundikoka kwamaita.
Aiwa tambotaura nemi munguva yapfuura asi tatiri kuda kunzwa zvedu kuti pari zvino mangwana nemazuva ari kuteera zvii zvimwe zvichange zvakatarisirwa ikoko kumusangano weAfrican Union. Takanyanyotarisa nyaya dzevanasikana vechidiki ava nemadzimai.
Tiri kutarisira kuti pachatanga summit yatotanga nekuti misangano mizhinji yatotanga kunge ichiitiwa. Tiri kutarisira kuti zvinonyanya kukosha zvakatarisa vanasikana zvedzidzo yavo, hutano uye nyaya yekuti vana vari kuroorwa vachiri vadikisa inge iri nyaya ichakurukurwa zvakasimba musummit yatakatarisana nayo. Asi tiri kutarisa budiriro yemunhukadzi nekusimudzira upenyu hwemunhukadzi wemuAfrica nekuti ndiwo musoro wenyaya wakatariswa nayo nesummit.
PJ.
Unkosikazi Gumbonjanda ubekhuluma lapho ukuthi imhlangano isiqalisile kodwa angatholi usamukeliso kakabi khona ecingweni yikho ke ungaqhubeka ngomuya omunye
Yeah, I think we have Muya Nyaundi on Skype joining us here from Washington, and she was saying she's very excited to actually be on the program tonight because she would like to hear about what is happening at the 25th AU Summit. Hello, Muya.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you and welcome. We have Miss Mai Nyaradzai Gumbonjanda here on the line with us. She's at the Africa Union Summit currently underway in South Africa, and she has just been highlighting for us some of the expectations at the summit. If you'd like to maybe say hello to her and we can go into a discussion with you.
Oh, yes. Hello. And, you're likely to be, at the summit, whereas we have to listen up and wait for news reports. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say firsthand.
Ms. Gumbonjanda.
Thank you so much.
Muya, you may have a question for Ms. Gumbonjanda yourself about the summit. We have spoken to her a little earlier before the program, but you can go ahead and ask her.
At the moment, not really. Not a question, just to add on as to the issues that she spoke about that she's expecting from the summit. But as the foremost, I would think that women's political participation, equal representation in policy making, decision making, I think that's very key, especially for Zimbabwe, in light of how we've gone back on that point, and compared to other African countries where you have female presidents being elected and so forth. So what I'm looking for the summit is to have ways in which Zimbabwe in particular will ensure equal representation of women in decision-making positions.
Mai Gumbonjanda, muri kunzwa zviri kutaurwa naSisi Nyaundi amene kuti pane zvamungapindura here mune zvavari kuti vanga vari kuti iyo vada kuona madzimai achikurudzirwawo nyanya panyaya dzematongerwo enyika. Zvinhu zviri kutaurwa here kusummit uku?
Inyaya iri kutaurwa kunyanya takatarisana nekuti muAfrica pane zvisungo zvakawanda zvakasungwa nemusangano wedu weAfrican Union zvekukurudzira kuti madzimai anga ari pane zvematongerwo enyika tinge tichipinda panokurukurwa nekuumbwa nyaya dzebudiriro. Asi chiri kunyanya kurwadza ndechekuti kosei kana pane maresolutions ese waya atinawo kubva kare nakare, sei zvisiri kuitika kuti tinge tine madzimai akawanda ari mudecision making imomo in the political level, including munyika medu meZimbabwe. Saka nyaya imwe iri kubuda inyaya yeviolence against women and also madzimai anenge ashinga kuti azvipira kuti anodawo kunge achimirira nharaunda dzavo kana kuti vachimirira nyika yavo, unotanga kutisangana nemasocial problems because kana uri mumhuri vanenge vachiti nyaya dzamaakupinda idzi dzinotyisa, kana kuti nyaya dzamaakupinda idzi madzimai muchazenge musingawani nguva nemhuri, kana kuti madzimai unotanga kuongororwa kuti uri mudzimai akamira sei. Saka those social barriers tiri kuona ari zvimwe zvikonzero zvikuru zviri kuita kuti madzimai asange achimirawo pamberi achinge achiti anoda kupinda mune zvematongerwo enyika, uye kuti it's expensive. Madzimai anenge akatarisa homwe yavanayo, ona kuti unoda kuendesa vana kuchikoro, school fees nezvimwe, campaign inoda mari. Saka mapolitical parties anofanira kunge ane homwewo inosimudzira kuti madzimai anoda kupinda mune zvematongerwo enyika vange vachikwanisa kunge vachiwana support pakampeni dzavo. Saka zvimwe zvezvinhu zviri kukurukurwa takatarisa nyaya yewomen in political participation.
Aiwa, tinokutenda imombobata yenyu makadaro. PJ, tinenge tine mumwe munyarikani wedu
osekhona ecingweni. Nkosikazi Samukeliso Khumalo, kunjani mama?
Ngiyaphila njani?
Hayi saphila. Siyakwamukela kuhlelo lethu lamhlanje.
Ngiyabonga.
Uyayizwa indaba esegudwini lapha sikhangele kubana ohulumende base-Afrika bathuthukisa njani amathuba ukuloba ukunikeza amathuba kwabesifazane ikakhulu. Lina-ke njengenhlanganiso ezilwela ilungelo labantu likubona lumhlangano unganceda na?
Yeah, unganceda uphinde njalo ungancedi, but uqalise ngifuna uku-acknowledge ukuthi i-presence kaNkosazana Zuma, I think it has had an impact in influencing the way AU carries out its business. I'm not too sure whether it's just by coincidence ukuthi njengoba commission chair and then sesile agenda that seeks to empower women, or it is because upushile. So I would say that she has really pushed women's issues become a priority. But then it has become a habit in the culture within our African states to put things on paper and implementwa. Sila constitution that supports women's empowerment, but akula muntu just hluphayo oyirecognizeayo njalo ukuthi ayishoniphe. And therefore, we think that EU must come up with a roadmap that clearly states how they are going to improve the lives of, especially the ordinary woman who is drowning in poverty, sickness, with domestic violence, uma nxa le roadmap ingafiki phansi to the ordinary woman.
PJ, nhare dzinenge dziri kuita dzichirasika asi pane zvatatiri kunzwa zvekutaura muzvare Khumalo vanenge vari kuti ivo dai iyo sangano reAfrica Union ranyatsotaura kuti zvii chaizvo zvinenge rapa hwaro yekuti zviri kutaurwa izvi kumisangano iyi zvinozobatsira sei nyanya madzimai ari kumaruva nevamwewo kungange kuri kumadhorobha, asi hakusi kuti vanhu vangogara chete voita misangano vonyorerana pasi pasina zvinozobuda. Ndambobvunzazve mai Gumbonzvanda mubvunzo iwoyo kuti mai Gumbonzvanda, imi tambotaura nevamwe veku1 mai moyo vanga vari kuti ivo ndo zvavari kunge vachikurumbira kuti zvinge zviripo kuti vada kuona kuti zvinobatsira sei vanhu vari kumaruva nevamwewo. Imi muri kuona zvichinyatsotaurwa here kuti zviri kubuda pamisangano iyi zvinozobatsira sei mudzimai, nyangwe ini ndiri kuno kana mudzimai wari kuteerera pari zvino?
Takatarisa madzimai ari kumaruva kunyanya takabata nyaya yeagriculture. Zuro nanhasi ndapinda musangano wanga uchikurukura nyaya iyi. Pakuda mashoko andidakadze kuti tofanira kutarisa agriculture nemudzimai ari kumaruzevha. Tichibva kubva pasubsistence and look at it from a business point of view. Because pari zvino tinoona mapolicy edu saka tarisa agriculture nemadzimai ari kumusha whether tiri kutaurisa kuti minda ichapiwa sei kana kutarisa kuti vanhu vari kurimei kana kutarisa nyaya dzeba-inputs, it's all done from a very subsistence point of view. Saka unenge uchingonzi kurime zvekuti vana vawane kudya, but tinoti zvinoita kuti ubude munhamo. Saka panoda shift yemafungiro uye kuti maprogram ehurumende around agriculture, for us to see agriculture as a business, and kuti titarise kuti kana tiri kurima madomasi tine domasi redu ratiri kurima, domasi rinofanira kunge tine good transport system rekuti domasi risvike kumusika riri fresh. Saka hurumende inofanira kutarisa kuti tine migwagwa yakakwana yakagadzirika, mapoto aya ekuti zvimarori zvedu hazvimbokwanisi kufamba. Saka we need infrastructure for the rural farmer kuti product yake isvike kumarket. And at the same time, kana tiri kumamisha tinenge toda kuti vana mai vane madomasaro aitwaka value addition, tigadzire tomato paste kana kuti dried tomato soup, asi at a level yekuti tinoenda as a business and not just yeproduction yeconsumption. Saka iniso kuona kwangu zvinhu zvakadai zvinogona kungotaurika zvoitwa zvisungo, but kana pasina kuzoenda kumusha ikoko kudomboshava kuya tisina kuzokwanisa kuenda kumadzimai ane mango dzavo pamusoko kuti vese dried fruit, ndopane dambudziko kuti zvinhu zvinongokurukurwa tokurukura kuno kuau asi nongodzokera kumba vanhu vanenge vachimbotambura. Ini chimwe chisina hangu munyanya ndifadza ndechekuti masangano akaita seau tinouya namadzimai ekumaruva, tinouya nevasikana vari kushingaira kuti voita sei, asi havaoni mukana wekunyatopinda mumisangano iyi nyaya dzeaccreditation idzodzo. Saka tinoona pane dambudziko rekuti we still talk about the women, we still talk about the girls, but the girls and the ordinary women are not there to talk for themselves. Saka ndo pamwe panongondishungurudza hangu.
Aiwa PJ vane nzeve vanzwa tombotora
sibuyele kunkosazana Khumalo. Makhumalo,
yebo ma
usukhona ecingweni ukuseke wawa. Hayi kodwa kungasenani lokho ubusasichasisa lapho ukuthi yebo imhlangano leyi yenziwa, yebo izibopho ziyenziwa, njalo sikhona isisekelo sombuso esitsha, kodwa lokho esingakasebenzi, izinto zonke zisephepheni. Kwenziweni ke ukuze umama osemaphandleni laye ancedakale, umama oselokitshini laye ancedakale ngezibopho zona lezi?
Ngicabangela ukuthi i-AU heads kumele babe accountable in terms of complying to gender equality statutes and instruments abazisayinayo, ukuthi bona kuyini abakwenzayo emazweni abo abakuletha onto the AU table. Bangabantu abahamba nje beseyakhuluma nje ngomlomo, kodwa kababuye bezokhuluma ukuthi bayenzeni. That accountability framework must be set ukuthi at least izinto zimove, otherwise akulanto yahamba.
Ukuthi ke omama laba abasemaphandleni labo bathole ithuba, njengoba unkosikazi Gumbunjana ubekhuluma lapha esithi ubuye lawo amantombazana asemaphandleni, omama abasesibancane abavele emaphandleni, ukuthi labo baphiwe ithuba lokuthi bazikhulumele inhlupho ababhekane lazo emihlanganeni enje. Lina liyaqhuquzela na kumbe liyakhuthaza inkokheli ze-AU ukuthi balinike ithuba lokuthi lani litsho imbono yenu emhlanganweni yona leyo?
Yes, siyakhuthaza ukuthi bayenze njalo, bangabona abantu sengazathi ngabantu abazocreate ama-problem, ngoba nxa abantu bebuthana besithi bafuna ukuhlangana ukuthi bakhulume izifiso zabo kuma-AU leaders, bona bacabangela ukuthi abantu babuye ukuzodemonstrate. So kumele kutshintshe that mindset ukuthi no, ama-platforms lawa are about the people and not about them. So nxa kuza imhlangano enje kumele bazimisele ukuthi bazahlangana labantu and bakwenze kube easy ukuthi bekwanise ukuthi ba-engage labantu, abe ngama-platforms for engagement as much as abe ngama-platforms for them to make decisions. So they can only make decisions uma kule engagement with the people that are affected.
Interesting view there, PJ, coming from both our guests.
Yes.
I heard Ms. Gumbanjwanda saying she had brought a group of young girls, but the issue of accreditation was a real challenge because she wanted those girls to be able to tell their stories, to be heard, so that they are not under discussion, but they are part, of the actual, plenary sessions. And I think also
they are not given they are not given the opportunity to be able to articulate all their problems or articulate. Actually, they are being blamed or blanketed as people that are coming to demonstrate or causing problems.
Yeah, I think it's an issue that I hope next time we'll be able to get an AU representative so they can actually tell us why it's taken so long, especially, if they are talking about women and young girls, for the young girls themselves to be accredited. But PJ, before we move forward, I think we'll go back to Ms. Nyaundi. You have been listening to our two guests. What would you say is your takeaway from what they've been sharing with us?
Unfortunately, my debate is very, very limited, so I'd have to probably try and see if I picked up a few things. I definitely agree that having it written down, having an agenda is very important. That's the starting point. At that point, you can then hold governments accountable for not having achieved what they said they achieved. So that's the starting point. Is either you can take the legal route or you can a policy directive in order to hold governments accountable for what they promised. Unfortunately, as has been mentioned, is that we had Beijing 1995. It's 20 years since then. What has Millennium Development Goals? What have we achieved since then? And it's sad to say that in some cases we've actually regressed. I think one of the goals for Millennium Development was 50-50 representation by 2015. Zimbabwe, for example, has an 11% representation of women in government. And now we are saying 2063, another 48 years in which to achieve these goals. By that time, I probably won't have teeth to eat meat, So I think that it's good that they sit down, heads of state sit down and set these goals. But what's key is the will for government or heads of state to implement. That's even more important. And I feel that yes, we can progressively realize some of these things. Given some countries are recovering from war, some countries are political instability, it's understood. But there are so many other things that can be immediately implemented. I think someone mentioned child marriages. You don't need 48 years in which to prevent child marriages. You need to put a law that specifically states that no child shall be married below the age of 18, male or female. In the event that happens, it's a criminal offense. Those kind of things can be done immediately to empower both, men and women. And I don't know if, at the African Union, yes, how can we, at summits, how can we be able to have our voices heard? I will go back to political participation. If you have members of parliament elected at a lower level, by the time they get to the government, they can then address their views to the president. So when your head of state goes to the African Union, he already has the views of the people back home. So if you have more women being politically represented, you have more female voices that then go speak at this stage. And you have your presidents or leaders, whether they're male or female, advocating for advocating for what you as a nation require. So my emphasis will always be on decision-making, policy-making. So you find that if you have very few women or men making decisions that affect women, how chances are those decisions...
Ms. Nyaundi, I think we'll have to just make you hold for a while. We'll come back to you. We're going to be migrating very soon to the internet, but I will put you on hold. And we'll come back to you in a bit. Please hold on. And to our guests, also Mrs. Nyaradzai Gumbonjwanda, the AU ambassador on early child marriages, and Ms. Keliso Nkumalo of Crisis in Zimbabwe. Please stay with us as we migrate, and you may listen to us on www.voazimbabwe.com. I'm Marvelous Mhlanga Nyahuye.
Mina umfraxitis Jeremiah sesilivalelisa lina elisemsakazweni. Kodwa-ke siyaqhubeka ngohlelo kweminye imizuzu engamashumi amathathu sisebulenjini www.voazimbabwe.com loba www.voaindebele.com.
Welcome again. If you're just joining us tonight on the Women's Roundtable, we are looking at the AU Summit, the 25th AU Summit currently underway in South Africa. The theme of the summit at the moment is Year of Women's Empowerment and Development Towards Africa's Agenda 2063. And we have some very interesting guests that are actually at the summit, and a guest who's here in Washington who are helping us to take a look at the summit and what we can actually draw from it for women and young girls. We have Mrs. Nyarazai Gumbonjanda, an AU Goodwill Ambassador on early child marriages, and Samkeliso Kumalo of Crisis in Zimbabwe, and also Moya Lynn Nyawundi, a lawyer who's based here in Washington. Welcome again, ladies. But before I take you on, I'll pass my baton on to PJ.
Yeah, lamhlanje kuhlelo lethu kulabo abasanda kusixhuma singumsakazo we-Studio 7 owe-Voice of America, lapho ke esithi asiyihluzeni bomama ku-LiveTalk. Kodwa ke namhlanje sikhuluma ngomhlangano lo owenzakala eJohannesburg kwele South Africa. Umhlangano ophathelane okhangele kakhulu ngokuthi omama baphiwe njani amathuba ukuthi bazithuthukise phansi kwendingimba yalonyaka ethi Year of Women Empowerment and Development Towards Africa's Agenda 2063. Lamhlanje uhlelo silabo esibanxusileyo ukubana basincedise unkosikazi Nyarazai Gumbonjanda, unkosazana Samkeliso Kumalo kanye lo nkosazana Moya Lynn Nyawundi oligqwetha.
Yebo PJ, aiwa nasi tine vanyarikani vakawanda chaizvo vari kutibatsira kuzeya nyaya yedu yatiri kutarisa iri mudariro nhasi ndemusangano mukuru we-25th Africa Union Summit uri kuitwa pari zvino PJ muguta reGauteng kuSouth Africa. Taita rombo rakanaka kunge tina mai Gumbonjanda variko kumusangano uyu, uyezve tina mai Samkeliso Kumalo varikozve kumusangano uyu, nasisi Moya Lynn Nyawundi vari muno muWashington vari kutibatsira kuti tizeye kuti madzimai nevanasikana chii chingabude kuti chivabatsire muupenyu hwavo hwemangwana. PJ, tisati tamira chirongwa chedu tanga tiri kutaura na muzvare Nyawundi, asi ndofunga tombodzokera kuna sisi Kumalo. Timbonzwa kuti pane misangano yavanga vari kuita nhasi, yanga iri misangano iyoyo imomo muSouth Africa.
Uyazizwela lawe makhumalo lapho kube lo mhlangano lapho wena obukhuluma khona lihlaziya ngawona lo mhlangano omkhulu owe-AU libe lihlaziyani.
Okay, thina njenge-civic society besenza ama-side events lapha kade sikhuluma ngakhona, especially le media, sikhulume le ntatho izindaba ezitshiyeneyo, ama-radio, ama-TV, sikhuluma ngombono wethu ngale i-AU Summit from the Zimbabwean perspective, njalo sikhuluma njengoba umphathintambo we-AU engumongameli wethu. So besikhangela indaba zona lezo ukuba ngakwenza njani ukuthi i-AU chairperson wethu ayenze i-AU ibe ngcono and also engakhohlwanga ukuthi ngekhaya ngale izinto azimanga kuhle zifuna ukulungisa.
Njalo angalungisisa njani izinto zonke kwamanye amazwe khona ngikhaya imbiza kayibi
izinto zengamanga kuhle. Exactly. These are our talking points akade siwasebenzisa ke ekutheni sifuna ukuthi at least even labo abasebenzelana la ku-AU labo they take responsibility in demanding accountability ukuthi kwenzakala nekhaya, because there are quite a number of issues abavumelanayo, but our question is how is that going to work if things at home are not put in place. For instance, we bavumelane ngayo le i-26 Nation Free Trade Pact ukuvula ke ama-borders ukuthi abantu bakwanisa ukumuva ke ama-goods abo, and we are saying ukuthi how does an ordinary Zimbabwean benefit ngoba plant ezenzakalayo phela ngikhaya ngale ama-industries are closed, every person has been turned into vendors, so how are they going to benefit konke lokho okufakwayo ku-AU level? So kulezinto eziningi okumele zilungise phansi before singakazilethi to the AU, otherwise kuzaba le disconnect between the AU and our domestic countries and our domestic practices.
So did you make a presentation which is going to be tabulated to the African leaders.
Yes, we did have a media briefing, the different media houses. Miss
Kumalo, maybe for the benefit of some of our guests, especially Miss Nyawunde, she would also like to hear what went on in today's meeting. If you can just give us in brief in English on the outcome of your meeting today.
Okay, then. I'm saying that we met different media houses and we presented our position paper, and then we are hoping that that position paper will reach out to a lot of people, including the heads of state themselves. But we did not have an opportunity to present our position to the heads directly. But otherwise, with the media, there is a lot that we have said with regard to our concerns in economic development. The economic decline, rather, in our country. We raised our concerns around around political instability. We raised our concerns around the human rights abuses, the disappearances of our human rights activists, Koitai Zamara, and also the frustrations as corner to the women leaders. For instance, we highlighted around Umay Mujuru and other women leaders that are frustrated, or threatening or intimidating any other leader who's female who would want to dare, challenge the status quo in Zimbabwe. So those were our talking points.
Oh, thank you very much, Miss Kumalo. PJ, trukunzwa apa kubva kuna mai Kumalo vari kuti aiwa panga pane mimwe misangano yanga iri kuitwa panguva apo vamwe vari kuitawo yavo vakamirira kuti kuzoya vatungamiri venyika vari kuti ivo vanga vari kutaura nemasangano akazvimirira ega vachiona ivo kuti zvii zvingaitwe vachikwenenzvera kuti zvii zvingazowanikwa zvichiturwa kune vatungamiri venyika pavachasangana nemugovera nesvondo. Pane zvandanzwa vati ivo zvimwe zvataurwa ndezvekuti kodzero dzevanhu dziri kuramba dzichityorwa munyika. Takatarisa kunyangarika kwakaita Itai Dzamara, totarisazve kubviswa pachigaro kwamai Mujuru nemamwewo madzimai ari kuda iwo kupinda mune nyaya dzematongerero enyika. Tiri panyaya iyoyo PJ tichitarisa by-elections achabva kuitwa, hatina kuona mukadzi achipinda
munhu wechidzimai apinda ipapa.
Nokuti ava vari muri zvenyu kumusangano mukuru uyu, asi mamwe maziso anga akatarisa zviri kuitika munyika. Kuti
ndo zvimwe zvatombotaurwa naMakumalo kuti mutungamiri wedu wenyika ariko ndiye chairman weAU pari zvino, asi zvinhu hazvina kumira zvakanaka kumusha. Saka angagadzirisa sei zvinhu zviri kuitika kune dzimwe nyika iye asina kugadzirisa zvinhu zviri kuitika munyika make? Ndo zvimwe zvacho zvemaby-elections kuti hapana munhukadzi asarudzwa ipapo.
Handizivi kuti remangwana remadzimai rakamira sei nyanya panyaya iyoyi yezvematongerwo enyika, nekuti vakawanda vanga vakatarisira pana mai Mujuru nevamwewo vanga vari muhurumende vatiri kuona vari kudzingwa ana mai Muchena nevamwewo zvisina basa kuti vari kupato ripi. Saka tinotarisira kuti pamusangano ipapo zvinhu zvichazewa nekuti ivo mutungamiri wedu vaMugabe ndivozve mutungamiri wesangano irori reAfrica Union.
Ndozvatanga tichitaura naMiss Kumalo. Mino mai Gumbonzvanda, munoionawo nyaya sei yemaby-elections results?
Kuti ikurukurwe kuti takatarisa munyika medu uye takatarisa muAfrica, chinhu chatinonyanya kutarisira pari zvino kuAfrican Union is respect for diversity and different views. Uye kuti kana usingabvumirane nemunhu hazvireve kuti unofanira kumushora kana kumuvhirigidza. It's okay to disagree, but to disagree respectfully. Tikaona nyika zhinji dzine hondo inoitika nekuti vanhu kana vasina kubvumirana vototora mapfumo vakubayana nemapfumo. The real developed countries kuti tisumudzire nyika. Hapana nyika inosumudzwa kana kune mufungo mumwe chete. Tofanira kuita mafungiro akasiyana, pfungwa dzakasiyana, vanhu vopikisana pobuda zvinoumba nyika. Saka inzi ndinoona chakatokosha pari zvino tiri muAfrican Union Summit iyoyi isu samadzimai tinofanira kusumudza a very strong voice around the essence of peace. If Africa is to rise and for us to have a peaceful Africa and which is prosperous, we need to have a very good respect for each other and to have the capacity to listen to people we disagree with. Because when you disagree with somebody, it doesn't mean that they are less value. They are equally valid. So ina hangu pache zvangu ndiri kutonzwa kurwadzikana kuti kweye ichaedza mara akamboendepi. Shuwa ndinotofungawo mudzimai wake nemhuri yake kuti Mwari unongonzwa kuti ndiri pano sepandiri ndongosvika ndonziva gumbo nzvandava sisipo ende hapana ari kuziva kuti vari kuti nana ndinovaudza kuti kudini ndinorarama sei nezuva nezvo. Saka ndinotarisira kuti senyika tinge takamira pamwe chete kuti zvakadai hazvifaniri kunge zvichiitika. I make my own very personal appeal. Kana pana ari kuziva kwaari kana zvakaitika kwaari, the most important thing to do, the most noble thing to do, and uye as a woman akaita give birth to a child, kungokumbira kuti kana pana ari kuziva kwaari, please ingotaurai mweya wake kwaari wherever he is, nesu hama dzake neshamwari nenyika tigadzikane. A simple ask. And it can be an anonymous disclosure, but tingoziva kuti munhu aripi. It's part of nation building. It's part of collective responsibility. Kana tichikwanisa kunge tichisumudza nyaya dziri uncomfortable to talk about, but which are necessary to talk about. Nyika haiumbwe nekungotaura things which are only comfortable. I'm speaking in this way because it's very painful to be with these 30 girls. And ndichiona mwana ane 13 years ari a widow. Mwana ane 12 years ari a divorcee. And then I say Africa needs to have the courage to discuss difficult issues. Difficult issues that we are not a poor continent, for instance. Atisi poor. Kutarisa kubva kumadiamonds, oil dziriko kunana Nigeria, munhu wese ane cellphone is staring a little bit of DRC pari. Africa is filthy rich. And yet the African woman akugomera.
Miss Kumbonjani, if I may come in there,
the discussion is happening.
If I may come in there and just ask, as the AU Goodwill Ambassador for child marriages and for young girls, are you going to be given an opportunity to actually address the heads of states? I see that you were saying the young girls that you're with were not able to be accredited. So how effective is their visit to this summit?
Their visit is effective, and I agree with Samuel. So I hope we'll meet in the corridor soon for us to share, not Samuel. So their presence, they may not be in the room, but they cannot be ignored. Because they're a critical mass, they are visible, they are available, their voice is heard, the mere presence of being here. They've been able to attend some of the side meetings, and also a few of them are accredited. So those few are able to bring issues forward. I am accredited, so it means in every session I'm raising this issue. And also we are going to be, as both my organization and as the AU, we are hosting a whole half-day event on the 13th, just before the summit, to just focusing on child marriage. And during the summit, we are also going to be working with some of the heads of states, and the heads of states are going to adopt the Africa Common Position on ending child marriage. But as I said, and as I continue to say, it's not enough to adopt a decision. It's not enough to have a resolution. The real issue is that these girls, kumamisha kwavo, and these governments have to help so that these girls do not experience child marriage. Mari ngadzipinde muchikoro, vana varambe vari muchikoro, and they should get education which enables them to get a livelihood. A livelihood which is beyond a job, because mabasa ari kutorina.
aiwa tinokutendai
economy to revive.
maigumbonzvanda tinokutendai vane nzeve vanzwa nyanya pamataura nenyaya yaitaidza mara uyezve nekukumbira kuti vanoziva kwaari vawanikwe ivo vachitaurira mapurisa kana vamwewo. PJ tisati takanganwa muzvare Lin Nyaundi, kana muripo apa muzvare Nyaundi, pindiraiwo mutiudzewo mafungiro enyu nezvamanzwa zvitaurwa namai Gandanzvanda namai Khumalo. Hello, Muzvare Nyaundi?
Yes.
You can go ahead and just give us your take on what Ms. Nyaradzai Gumbonzvanda and also Ms. Khumalo was saying earlier on.
Oh, yes. I was saying that I certainly agree with them, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that where countries are politically stable and have a good, thriving democracy, it follows that their economies thrive as well. So you can't separate the two. You can't speak of women empowerment if you don't have a thriving economy, if you have an unstable government. Investors are not going to come in. They're not going to come in and invest in men. They're definitely not going to come in and invest in women. So it defeats the whole purpose. So I believe that as African governments, always at the foremost should be democracy issues, stability, political stability, and everything else will follow. A good flourishing economy will follow. And at the same time, women will prosper, men will prosper. So I certainly agree with them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, Makhumalo, wathi ngize kuwe umbuzo obuzwe unkosikazi Ngumbonjanda ukuthi lizathola na ithuba lokuthi lani liyenze ipresentation kunkokheli emhlanganweni yenkokheli nxa isikhona inkokheli yamazwe omongameli inhloko zabohulumende. Lizaba lethuba la lina njengenhlanganiso ezizimeleyo, lina njenge-crisis in Zimbabwe?
Ithuba soze sibe lalo kodwa sisebenzelana lamanye ama-organization accreditiweyo nalento kule ama-side events amaningi ayenziwa ngama-civil society organizations. So ama-positions ethu sizabe sizawachanela through those organizations, but otherwise njengenhlanganiso lesingela nge-accreditation.
Wona laba belethuba. Umbuzo wami olandelayo ngothi njengoba silomgcini sihlalo owesifazana ku-Africa Union, kunkosikazi Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma, lina likubona ngani sokuthuthukisile usedlale indima enganani ukuthuthukisa abesifazana?
Like I said initially, I think that the theme itself, it could be by coincidence, she is there, but I want to believe that it's through her that she has deliberately said, let's come up with a clear agenda on women's empowerment. Because when I look at the AU objectives themselves, they don't speak directly to gender equality and lezinto zabo mama. It's more of power issues, issue of sovereignty, territorial integrity, political, socio-economic integration. But it doesn't really speak to the mama. How are they integrated in their objectives? So for me, they're saying no. I think her presence then has brought a different focus altogether in women's issues. Then maybe if they could actually look at the AU objectives and come up with a women-specific objective that shows that AU is really committed to this theme that they've put in 2015.
I'll throw the same question to Nkosikazi Gumbonjanda. Do you think personally having a female chairperson in AU has helped develop or
further the cause of women?
I totally agree, and I am very excited that we have Nkosazana on this position, because when she took office and gave her inaugural speech, I was in the room. And one of the things which she did, always look for opportunities for these girls to be in the summit. She said, can you bring girls with you? I said, definitely. So we had 50 girls to the summit. And she made sure that they were accredited. And she gave them VIP treatment. But in her speech, she said, I will make the issues of women and girls my priority in a practical way. So some of the tangible ways that she has put it is to make it a summit agenda, We have also seen her appoint Madam Binta Diop, who is the African Union Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. It's the first time ever that the AU has a special envoy on Women, Peace and Security. And it is last year when she launched the campaign to end child marriage, a very tangible initiative for girls. It means she has addressed the issue at summit level, she has addressed the issue around security, women, peace and security, and now looking into what are the monitoring mechanisms coming out of this summit. But as some people has been saying, it's an issue of accountability. Ultimately, she can do all what she can do, but we still only have three now, female leaders in a presidency. If we look at Nigeria, Central African Republic, and now the president or the prime minister of Mauritius. So we still have only 3 women out of 54. So even if the chair of the commission can do so much, but actually we go back to what my sister Nyaunde was saying, we need women, a critical mass of women in decision making, because otherwise the change does not happen if it's anecdotal.
Tiri panyaya iyoyo maigumbonzvanda pavana vasikana vechidiki vamunavo ivo vari kuti shuviro yavo ndeyeyi kuti zvii zvavari kuda kuti zvibude pamusangano uyu?
Vana chekutanga vari kuti vanoda kuti dai vawana mukana wekutaura nevatungamiriri vavo pachezvavo vachisimudza nyaya yedzidzo. Nyaya yedzidzo iri kubuda zvakanyanyisa. Nyaya yechipiri iri kubuda ndeyekuti the African young women are not just poor and suffering, but they are actually doing something every day to find solutions to their issues. So even if arimana kumusha, but arikumuka achienda kugarden, arikuenda achienda vending, yatataura kuti we are a nation of vending, but they are doing something. So they also want the narrative of the African woman, not just to be that of poverty, of waiting for solutions from somewhere, but they want the narrative which recognizes that they are innovators, they are creative, they are involved in being part of solutions. They are also raising that, especially Southern Africa, near HIV. There's a very strong discussion that we still have millions of women living with HIV. Sub-Saharan Africa still has the highest incidence and prevalence of HIV. But the world is now moving on to other issues. And we still have to address issues of treatment, issues of prevention, and that is coming with a huge responsibility to our governments. And the last is with technology. That it was so painful sitting with this girl, and she said, look at me, Form 4, I've never touched a computer. And yet you're talking about this technology and this technology. My school has no computer, we're still using a typewriter, and we have no electricity. So we are way behind. So the issue of infrastructure for technology in order for our girls to be competitive on the global market, it was just such a painful conversation.
Thank you, Mrs. Gumbonjanda PJ. Mumboti de nerurimi resindebele.
Unkosikazi Gumbonjanda lapha ubekhuluma ethi yena ubuye lamantombazana asebenza lawo kulabo abamelayo ilungelo labo lokuthi bangalotsholiswa bebancane kakhulu. Uthi yena ubuye lamantombazana ama-30. Umavela silapha wabuza wathi yena kuyini okukhangelelwe ilawa amantombazana njengoba bebuyile emhlanganweni laloba bengasaze banikwe ithuba lokuthi baye phambi kwenkokheli yamazwe awezwekazi le-Afrika ukubana bakhulume ngenhlupho ababhekane lazo. Yena uthi amantombazana la amaningi balodubo abadibana lalo abathanda ukuthi luyafikiswa unkokheli zabo indubo ezigoqela ulwazi oluphathelane luyisana lokumemetheka kwegciwane elibangela umkhuhlane wengculaza ele-HIV. Kuseselo umthwalo omkhulu ukuthi abantu bafundiswe ikakhulu amantombazana kanye labesifazane ukuthi bazivikele kanjani. azokuthi njalo amantombazana lawa iningi lawo abayanga ezikolo lapho okule technology khona. Yikho ke kuyadingeka ukuthi bafundiswe abantwana laba batholiswe amathuba labo okwenzela ukuthi nana bafinyelele labo ukuthola just a computer. Umtshina wecomputer nje ingaba i-desktop nje yodwa zwe ukuze labo bakwanise ukuthi badinge ulwazi information on the internet. Yeah.
Ayiwa PJ vanenziwe banzwa.
Yeah, ngayijikela la kumakhumalo ukuthi asizwisisa ukuthi izinhlupho bani ababona zidibana lamantombazana kumbe labesifazana.
Yebo mama.
Yeah.
Indubo zakhona zizo zona ezinje ezikhulunywayo right across indaba yena le ukuthi amantombazana akathisi ngendaba ye-economy eZimbabwe that is deteriorating. Uzafica ukuthi they are now sexual workers or ngingathi ngama-slaves ngoba okunye bakhona bakwenza because kabale enye choice.
Yeah.
So uzafica ukuthi sokuhlupha ukuthi umntwana oyinkazana akwanisa ukuthi afunde aqede adinga umsebenzi ayisebenze imisebenzi kayikho and it makes it very difficult. And also if the situation yethu economy is siwa at the rate at which it is declining, uzafica ukuthi obaba yibo abaphumayo besadinga imisebenzi kuma neighboring countries, omama yibo abasalayo seyiba ama household lokuzen heads. So it's very difficult for umuntu ongumama vele who's not economically empowered ukuthi ikwanise ukunakekela umuzi. And also like nxa into zizinje umntwana oyinkazana nguye ukuthiwa drop isikolo umntwana ongumfana ahambe isikolo. So we find ukuthi we still again with a situation where now we are creating a generation of uneducated girls. So we are back to where we started. The way women really abengahanjiswa isikolo bengayikho empowered. That's where we are right now, which is a very, very a serious concern.
Thank you very much, Ms. Khumalo. We will round off with Ms. Nyawundi. If you may also just comment on what you heard coming from Mrs. Gumbonjanda and also Ms. Khumalo. She's just raised a very valid point of the generation of young girls that we're raising right now.
Again, it was in Debele. Could you just give me a brief summary?
She was basically saying lack of education. I'd asked it a question emanating from what Mrs. Gumbonjanda was saying about some of these girls that she brought. They don't even know how to operate a computer. Basic things like that. Okay, they're not able to get.
Okay, yes. So I totally, in conclusion, I totally agree that there are so many barriers for women's equal participation. Child marriages, and usually the young girls that are forced to that lack to, sanitary provisions are also an impediment to women participating in the education, child preference to male children, and so forth. So there are so many barriers towards women empowerment. But at the same time, I think women should also do their part. While government is doing their part towards promoting women, women should also step out of their shell. A lot of us, were raised to be quiet and so forth. And
Ms. Nyawundi,
yes?
I may have to give you a few seconds just to wrap up because we're coming to the end of our programming.
Okay, no, that's fine. So I'm just saying that women, especially organizations, women organizations, and even Women in Power, we had our vice president, they should be seen to be doing more to assist our young girls and women in order to participate equally with their men. So in as much as we expect government, women should also step up and try to empower themselves. For example, read and know what the Constitution says. Read and know what the Act says.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lynn Nyawundi, speaking to us there from here in Washington. And we had Mrs. Nyaradzai Gumbonjanda, the AU Goodwill Ambassador on Early Child Marriages, and Samkeliso Khumalo from Crisis in Zimbabwe, helping us look at the AU 25th Summit in South Africa currently. Thank you very much to all our listeners and viewers. I'm Marvelous Mklanganyahuye, saying see you again next week.
Mina Praxetis Jeremiah saying live libe lo buthongo obuhle asijibaneni njalo ngevikeli zayo ngasikhathi sinye.